very warm welcome to all the audience out here to the Automotive 4.0 New Opportunities in New Technologies. I have with me all the revered guests out here, from into the panel. Basically, Mr. Sudhakar, who comes from Royal Enfield. Mr. Sudhakar, can we have you on stage? We have Jasmine, who comes from Mahindra and Mahindra. She's heading the HR and the technology piece out there. Jasmine, welcome. And then last but not the least, of course, we have Shaveta. She comes from Hero Cycles, again, a company which is highly revered, as we know, as we have always spent our childhood being in the cycles, right? So very warm welcome, Shaveta.
Thank you. Thanks, Vivek.
Thank you. Great. So let's get started. I think what I'll do is my strategy today is to put all the hard questions back to you, right? Of which I don't know the answers. So I will get it started, and I think it will be very favorable for the audience as well. You know, the audience, we have a rich audience around from the tech SME side and people who are looking forward to help the industry. I myself coming from an industry adoption background, right? Working very, very closely with the industry veterans in terms of innovating and in terms of scaling up the innovations to the value across the value chain, right? So with that, let me put a pitch to Sudhakar here. Sudhakar, there was today, if I have not heard it wrong, Mr. Siddharth, who is the MD of Eicher Motors, he's talking about 90 to 95% share in 250cc motorcycle segment, right? And the agileness to get into RE 2.0, which means expanding your product portfolio beyond horizons and taking the competition to 5.0, right? So with that kind of a situation, how do you see yourself adapting and adopting across the industry value chain, across the whole personalization of the automotive sector and leveraging technology, right? Which is, of course, inevitable today. How do you see that to be going?
Certainly, I think, good evening, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here. Now, referring Vivek back to Siddharth's comment about we want to actually become the middleweight segment leader across the world. I think the way we do that is we get our basics right. In fact, that's a core underlying philosophy. So we get our product right first. The product is motorcycle. Of course, the product is also what you see on me. We do a little bit of apparel as well that helps the rider. Once we get the product right, then I think there are other mechanisms, and digital plays a very big role there. And how does it play a big role there? You can cut the entire value chain for the rider or the user or the customer, in our case, is right from a buying journey all the way back to fulfilling what they're actually buying. So very, very recently, I'll take an example. Very recently, along with a new motorcycle launch, the new motorcycle is Meteor. Along with the Meteor launch, digital played a very, very important aspect. We handed what you refer to personalization back to the customers. And how was this personalization done? Through the digital medium. Obviously, this device that you go to bed with. It was available on the mobile phone. It was available on the website, Royal Enfield website, where our riders, our customers, potential customers could go and make their own motorcycle. And through that, the entire value chain again supported this personalization. Once they were able to personalize and customize the motorcycle, at the back end, we were able to connect all the systems, and these are your core foundational systems that you have in place. Where digital becomes the front layer, but your core foundational systems help in fulfilling the promise that we have made to our customers. So I think it plays a very, very critical role. And what I'll tell you is we're just getting started. There's a lot more to come in the journey. There's a lot more to come where we take it across the world.
Great, Sudhakar. I just heard that, so I just thought I'll put you on the spot, right? But you could get out of that very quickly and answering it very well. So let me put a follow up there, Sudhakar, for you before we go on with Shweta there. So you're talking about personalization, right? And that's how this whole agileness is coming. And we are talking about the whole set of product portfolio and your whole PLM cycle so as to call it, right? How do you feed it back? Technology is very important at the recipient end, where you're talking about the end customers, which is very important, which is the end of value chain, right? Ultimately, we are delivering it for the customer. How does it cascade back, and how do you adjust yourself? How do you adjust your digital gap, right? In a manner which is agile within your organization as well, in terms of handling that maturity.
Right. I think what we started doing a few years back is really forming teams which are actually focused on being agile. Of course, with the customer in mind. I'll take the same personalization example that we have it in the market right now. Make it yours is what it's called as. So we thought about a roadmap and a journey. We said, we started with a 2D configurator to start with. We put it on the website. We learned something out of that as to what the customer is going through, what the customer is wanting. Now with the Meteor launch that I talked about, we upgraded that into a 3D configurator where the experience is much, much richer. So you can actually go, you can pick, plop there, turn it around, see what the cost is, play with it, add some more soft products to it that you want to buy, such as insurance, such as warranty and things of that nature. Finally click and go with. So that was one next level of maturity. Now you could take it to another level of maturity by introducing augmented reality.
Right.
So the point is, I think, you've got to lay your journey in a manner, I think, that's actually helping our customers ultimately and engaging them in that whole process. So we've got a lot more in the roadmap.
Right.
A few of them. We've got a lot more coming in the roadmap. I mean, you can bucket all these under, let's say, your industry 4.0 umbrella, quote unquote. But
right.
With the customer in the focus.
I see a lot of opportunities there, I think, with various players. So I'll switch back to Shweta here, right? And I know you'd be able to answer all the questions, but I'm trying to turn this whole value chain upside down, right? So while Sudhakar picked the end of the value chain where you're delivering it to the customer, and of course, I'm sure you also, right? I used to, my last ride on the Hero
so
cycle.
Vivek, you broke up for me. Yeah.
Are you able to hear me? Am I audible?
So Vivek, I can, but yeah, you were actually audible. Suddenly your voice got a little patchy and I missed last couple of seconds.
Okay, I'll repeat, no problem. So Sudhakar talked about the end of the value chain where we are in front of the customer, the end user, and we are delivering that, right? I'm sure the same would happen for a cycle industry as well, right? And I can imagine myself riding a sports cycle with all the accessories, not a mobile, basically, at the stage. But shifting gears, if you see you to be interacting with your people, your stakeholders, right? The people to whom you are actually addressing the challenges, right? Because different products have to go to the market. While Sudhakar talked about personalization and then moving back to the value chain. If you look the value chain from the production of new models coming up, new versions coming up, new flavors of even within the same versions, right? How that agileness is handled at the level where it is manufactured and it goes to the supply chain. How do you see the technology infusion and the new technologies coming in?
So actually, the crux there is the demand sensing, right? as in what is my customer really looking at, and our new product development, our research is very, very active in that, right? It's about so really it's the coming together of from a tech solutions perspective, your CRM, your lead management, all of that together, right, can really give you a sense of what is that your customer really wants, right?
Right.
And that is where I think the changes start coming in. We recently launched the electric cycle, right? So
Yeah.
it's a cycle that can go for 25 kilometer per hour, and it can be run on a throttle. It has the required battery and motors to really power it, right? And if you really wanted to now go and get into the fitness mode, you could really shift the mode and get to just pedaling, and work it out, right? Because cycles really fun fitness commute, right? So
Yeah.
whether depending upon, and the cycle can really go between all the categories, right? Depending on what you want to use it and what your mood is right now, right? Now, to be able to get to this product, it's been a lot of discovery that has really gone in at the back end, right? In terms of a lot of these millennials who want to commute in a style, but also are fitness conscious, right? So how do we really bring some of these segments together and create a product? So that's how, and then it's not just about envisaging, and then of course we have whole toll gate process, which is again technically enabled from an internal process perspective. That how do we ensure that it's going through the required checks and balances, and the product that comes out is tested, is prototyped in the right way, and there is an acceptance of with users or end customers. Actually, we also have a big support group, right? Who we actually, when we are doing these kind of absolutely ground changing products, who we engage with and have them do the tests and trials, and the initial support group tries these products and then gets back these feedback to us so that we can improve and launch it. Now, this application, from a technical enablement perspective, this bike that we launched, we did a whole mobile app supporting it. Now, you can get it on the app stores, whether it is your Androids or iOS, and you can start your bike. You could actually see how much distance is left in terms of the battery capacity, right? So what we did was that you could pretty much look at it. You know that okay, your battery, this much battery is left. So now you could really go that far in the throttle mode, and then you'll have to go to the pedelec mode, right? So a lot of those things we are doing in terms of technically enabling these bikes that you can't even imagine or haven't done in the industry in the past, right? So whether it's monitoring critical parameters, whether it is monitoring or starting, stopping the lights, and other paraphernalia and accessories around it. So and then of course the whole assembly line. The cycle is another very interesting because my previous experience has been on manufacturing pretty large products like locomotives, right? So assembly lines are not that agile. Now here, when we do so many different SKUs, actually we are launching like 3 new SKUs every 3 to 4 months, right?
Okay.
Some of these are flavors, some of these are variants, right? So now, for us to be able to ensure, for that my assembly line has to be very agile, right? My entire process of how I store this material in warehouses, how that's picked, how that's presented to the lines, all of that has to be very, very agile, right? And that's been frankly a very interesting journey, having in my current journey with Eurocycles, on how that agility is really managed and turned around on that frequency. So
fantastic. I think I have to choose between riding a bike and riding a bicycle, right? So
absolutely.
Whichever is more, and I'll put both of you in spot in terms of a competition, who gives the better user experience.
You can do both.
You can do both, absolutely.
Of course.
There's different segments we play in. Yeah.
Right. Depending upon what is the objective, whether it is commute, fit,
absolutely.
or as you said.
Yeah.
So moving the gears, switching to the harder ones, which Jasmine handles, right? We're talking about the end user experience out here and how in an agile way, and you apply the technology, whether it is through the mobile apps or through what AR, VR. There's so many technologies as opportunities for the companies. Jasmine, I think one of the things we always ignore is the people who are the employee, right? Go through the same cycle of experience, right? Where probably your organization would come from, that you are giving that experience to your end users. you have to be ultimately on those shoes first, right? In a way, to really sense that. It's like a total experience is equal to user experience plus, or employee experience plus user experience. How do you get that thing right? How do you get that employee experience, get that thing right in your organization, or how you have been able to do that?
Well, to start with, we have a fantastic board. So if you look at our annual report, the Mahindra Group's annual report, you will see a employee value proposition of CAPE-able people equals to real experiences. When CAP stands for human capital, right? And real stands for recognition of outperformance and creation of an empowering environment, and AL for abundant learning opportunities. And these are the backbone of all the initiatives we actually do for the group. So what does it mean for Mahindra Group, which has 262,000 employees across the globe, across 11 sectors, who have
Right.
opportunities of enhanced learning experiences? We're talking of people, there have been discussions in the past about, in your past sessions also, on future skills, upskilling your employees,
Yeah.
skills relevant today which are not relevant tomorrow. How do we manage human capital, uh, which is constantly changing? How do we manage a skill repository which is relevant today but is irrelevant maybe 2 years down the line? How are we upskilling our employees? Second point of question or an opportunity that comes into our hand when we have such diverse population to deal with is mobility. Let's say I have a resource available in one sector or in one unit, which can be leveraged, who has certain skills, but can be leveraged at another location. How do I create those kind of opportunities not only to business but also to an employee who wants to diversify his skills? The last LinkedIn report, if you have access to it, would say that most transfers and the most amount of employee mobility was across sectors, across functions. We have a millennial population out there who wants to work independently. They have a very independent thought process. They want to be specialists. Some of them want to still be generalists. That means they want to decide their career path. They don't want a manager who's going to come and tell you, hey, you're not good at this,
Right.
and you will be moving into so and so function. Try telling that to a millennial. Most of them are not going to digest that.
Right.
So another aspect which is coming into play very strongly, and that's something that I've observed in the past few months, is the whole concept of a group corporate citizenship. A feeling of belonging. So when we talk of experience, it's not okay. What's your attrition rate? What was your scores on
Yeah.
certain surveys that you do? That's not all experience. Experience is gathered at that moment, in that point of time, at the end of a process. If you're doing a performance management process, at the end of that process, what was the feedback gathered? That in that moment, feedback is your actual experience gathered. Most of us try to do this wrongly at a certain particular point of time throughout the year, once in a year, maybe through a pulse survey or something of that sort. And you might get a response, but it won't be that accurate. Experience, when I say experience, it is more feeling of trust, belonging, satisfaction, feeling of growth. How do we give this to our employees? How do we capture their feelings, especially during an unprecedented time or a challenging time like where we are right now? It's the COVID times, Have we tried to check the pulse, constantly check the pulse of our employees? Do they
Right.
feel good? What are their current challenges? How did we cope with them? The real
Right.
assets of our companies are our employees. They create what we
Absolutely.
deliver to customers.
Absolutely.
Um,
I think if I yeah.
yeah,
I think if I really break that down into an employee experience, one is, of course, we're talking about safety, right, which is very important. You're giving the safety to your employees. Second is, of course, because that itself raises the interest level, right? and reduces the anxiety level. Then is the health, of course, because that's where you get the people to be productive, right? And the third is the core technology, right? Because we cannot talk about, and I was speaking with within Mahindra Group itself, the tractor division, right, which is handled by Mr. Amol Deshpande, how you had developed the PPE kit from one of your units, right, in a matter of, I think, 60 to 90 days. I can
That's right.
imagine, Jasmine, how it would have been a turnaround situation. People working in that kind of a situation, which was, I would say, it's very scary, right? But you're able to build that up and you're able to produce that PPE kit, right? And I can see that rubber hitting the ground with the real essence of all these three facets, right? Whether it is safety, whether it's health, and also, getting the people to the new technologies. So picking this, and I'll just have a follow up with you, Jasmine, very quickly before I go back to Sudhakar for more harder and tougher questions. Now, when we talk about upskilling people, this is something which has been seen in both the ways. One is, and there are people who are, I would not say they are in the old league where they don't want to change, right? And there are people who want to change, but they are looking forward to get upskilled, right? How do you handle such situation? And you have to infuse this automobile 4.0 or industry 4.0 and all these skills, not at an awareness level, at a level where you have to bring the tech SMEs and bigger companies to kind of operate, deploy new technologies, and they have to be cognizant. How do you handle these two types of people in terms of getting? It's a perfect experience, right? As well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you need to understand managing two diverse sets. One is a chunk of millennial population who really don't want to be told how to do things. They want a guidance, but not a direct. Uh, you know what I mean to say.
Yeah.
And then you have a chunk of those population who are still, as you mentioned, stuck on old ways of working. Our objective is not to push either one or tell them how to do things. We must understand when we talk about upskilling or reskilling, it must be democratized, right? At the end of the day, it is the survival of the fittest. Even in an organization, if you're capable, you will grow. And
Right.
people are going to notice it. And nothing is there to stop you if you are able to deliver, no matter what, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like flowing water. You will cut through the toughest rock. You'll flow around the rock, but you'll get through, right? It'll take you longer, but you'll get through. So when it comes to upskilling and reskilling, the objective is to democratize it. Let people
Right.
understand that learning is equally that employee's prerogative. Yes, we can enforce learnings, but that's more in the way of compliance and governance
Right.
and things where a company needs you to complete a training, right?
Absolutely.
Code of conduct or whatever from that perspective. But when it comes to diversifying skills, for example, me, I'm from hardcore technology. I'm going to diversify into human resources, into digital marketing tomorrow, or into something else. I should have that opportunity to diversify, right? And that's where democratizing learning comes into play.
Perfect, Jasmine. Perfect. I think well said.
And you know
Yeah, go
what?
on.
Something very important. It's equally the responsibility and capability of the leader or the type of leader to extract the best out of his or her employee or his or her
Absolutely.
team. So it's a
I,
two-way thing.
Absolutely. I was coming to it, Jasmine. You got the right string, basically.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hit that string very quickly. So Sudhakar, coming back to you, right? So we're talking about this whole agile world, and I think that's where Shweta will also add in. Now, as you get yourself in an agile mode and you adopt new technologies, right? I understand there'll be some technologies where you are confident on, right? If you see the whole, I'm not kind of messing up with the healthcare. The healthcare has really risen to the next level today because necessity is the mother of discovery, right? Same is the case for manufacturing, right? In your field, you would have all sorts of people who would help you. There are large organizations, there are small and medium organizations from the technology side, and of course, there are integrators. AI I have not brought in. I'll get that tough question very quickly. How do you really blend this all together, right? To make it happen. I'm not talking about specific technology. I'm talking about the opportunities here for different types of people to come in, because I'm very sure you'll fall short of the providers, right? Where do you see these opportunities coming, which will suffice your requirement?
Sure, I think like you said, Vivek, it's a multitude of things that happen. From firstly, I think to be agile, you got to have a niche player who's willing to do it in an agile manner for you. I think that part gets done quite nicely. There are quite good population of niche players in the market, and that's what we have been doing. We've been working with the niche players to sort of take a concept, the 3D configurator that I talked about earlier. So they were proof of concepts that were done and so on. But then you hit a point where you think, geez, I've got to scale this up to the 3.5 million customers that I have who wanting to use this. And that's when you sort of look for, can this organization actually scale? And scaling is not just about, I think, just scaling in technology, really. Scaling is in that whole thinking process of how you're doing the whole value chain.
Absolutely.
So I think, that's what I would sum up, really. So there's plenty of opportunities for all sorts of players, really, from a proof of concept. I think you introduced, I learned something new a couple of days ago that you called as a proof of value. I think so.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something that we would want to start doing with some of the players out there, and see how that journey progresses, really. Yeah.
Absolutely. So over to you, Shweta. Right? I think again, when you start evangelizing or start innovating, there are areas where that you have a direct connect, right? You can just get a player and you can get started. But there are areas where you think you have to take a risk, right? And you think, to Sudhakar's point, it's like a duck paddling below the water, right? And above the water, the duck is quite stable, right? It looks to be stable, but it's paddling all beneath, right? But in such situations, when you think that you have to bring an economically viable, flexible solution that has to scale, how do you deal with that? Just thinking that you are representing that duck there, right? You're on mute. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, you can hear me now, right?
Yeah.
So I was saying, absolutely very well put. And this is one of the key challenges. Right? Perpetually, we are trying to balance, and not just in the technologies like maybe, AI, ML. In our organization, there is a need to really try out things which are more basic and hygiene, right? Something, as mundane or as routine as how we plan our demand, right? Now and how I plan my production. There are a lot of gaps in at least the core suite, and hence you go out and you look for other solutions. While some of it may pass your proof of concepts, but the whole thing, can it scale to all my plants globally? Can it take care of all the variants which I wouldn't have, or all the constraints that I couldn't just simulate at that point of proof of concept, right? Because when it actually goes into the production, that's when reality hits, the rubber, really hits the road, and those are really very, very hard decisions to make, right? And then integrations.
Absolutely.
How well can those integrations happen with your larger suite, and has those connections or those integrations been done in the past, and where will it fail, right? When I will put through, so I am doing some millions of cycles that I'm producing, right? And hence the amount of transactions that's created, and say every bill of material when that gets exploded and when dispatch and all happens, right? Handling more of these things at that scale, at that volume, and then getting to newer company codes and the newer plant codes, and that will be like we have like some 2,000 odd dealers. We have some, and those are active dealers, right? I mean, the actual will be like some 5,000-7,000. Right? So now, getting something that scales across is where really the challenge happens. So what is one of the approach that I have taken, at least say on Industry 4.0. So some of these areas which are far more complex, I haven't really attempted a really very highly risky stuff. But what I've attempted, at least in the Industry 4.0 space, right, where we are trying to figure out how can I make some of my lines more connected with sensors. I have real-time data of process charts, how it's happening. How can I get the preventive maintenance going? How can I get the really operating effectiveness of my lines really getting effectively turned out? And I have a view of entire plant. So I really broke that entire size into a smaller chunk. So we've picked one line. So in our case, our paint line, and then even paint line, we further broke it down, right? And then we took a leap with one of newer, lesser known, not as big as suppliers, right? And seeing how it really runs off. So that way, my investments are cut off to really, really small, right? And I'm able to put that into production to really see that, okay, how does this all plays out, right? Am I able to get to what I want? It still has my entire scale. It just has a smaller part of the plant. It does not have a whole plant, right? If this works out, say for another 6 months time frame post go live, and whatever hurdles that comes in, and I'm able to solve for that, and I grow, right? Then I add rest of the paint line, and I add rest of the plant's paint lines, and so on and so forth, right? So at least the architecture that we've planned is that way, that we're able to scale. So yeah,
that's what we mean by proof of value, right? And I think
yes, absolutely, yeah.
Right?
So that's exactly what in our case, or a recent example that I could pick up where we've done, and areas where I'm not able to, right? As in take that leap. So I sort of wanted to give you a fair flavor of both.
Absolutely. So I think we are towards the end of the time, but I'll still want to give that last question on how the organization adjusts with it to Jasmine. Jasmine, while the CIOs, all the capable CIOs and committed CIOs are working, and they are really behaving like the duck which is paddling beneath. How do you see in your organization, like you talked about the commitment, right? The stakeholder commitment, which actually gives the confidence to the CIO as well. It's not that he's running the battle as a single army, right? How do you think that to be working across the stakeholders? You have 30 seconds.
So to begin with, everyone's paddling below the water, right? It's just who is making bigger paddles at the end of the day. And one thing which is very important and which I've seen as gaps across so many organizations is a strategic alignment. Everything must have a strategic alignment. That's why when I started my discussion by saying what our board demands from us as capable people equals real experiences. So once that alignment is there, the frequency of your paddling is in rhythm with the rest of your organization.
Absolutely.
The moment you're paddling more or less, you're out of sync for various other reasons. I hope those 30 seconds were valuable.
Absolutely. Very, very sharp 30 seconds. In fact, it's so engrossing that I can keep on continuing on this for next 2 hours, but the time does not permit. I'm being pulled back from the stage now. So with that, I think thanks very much to all of you. I think being on stage and sharing those views, I look at there are bigger opportunities in the automotive sector, in the manufacturing sector, which I also represent. Looking forward, of course, to work with you at backstage, right, and have more conversations. Thank you very much.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.